Man, oh man, oh man. Looks like Crawford got the internet buzzing a little bit. Came out and he said that had some choice words, I guess, about Canelo Alvarez, and made some comments. Basically saying that Canelo Alvarez avoids black fighters. That he tries not to quote fight black fighters, certain type of style that is just not conducive to towards him. Gets some issues, problems, so he tries to stay away from him. And so a lot of people kind of went on him a little bit, like, get the F out of here. Like, saying, what, top black fighters are you fighting? And then kind of started naming some of the people that Canelo Alvarez fought. And the thing with that is that, yeah, Crawford does do certain things. Like, he is avoiding certain fighters. He is trying not to fight certain fighters. People might not agree with that, but it's the truth. I'm not even saying that he's scared of them. I'm just saying that, he's signed to Top Rank. Top Rank has a certain blueprint. They have a certain way of doing things, and Crawford goes along with that blueprint. So even when it comes to something like an Earl Spence fight, that fight's not going to happen. I've been telling people for years, that fight's not going to happen unless that fight does at least 2 million pay-per-views. Fight's not going to happen. But just because he's doing, let's say, something, it doesn't mean that what he's saying is false. It doesn't mean what he's saying is false. Now, as far as this Canelo quote, try to avoid black fighters, just as far as the race is concerned, I'll have to say no to that. He's not, quote, I guess you say, avoiding black fighters. But what he is doing is, though, he is avoiding top tier competition, which a lot of them happen to be black. And it just happens that most of the people he's had the most issues with when he did fight them, obviously, were black fighters as well. Even the Danny Jacobs fight, he won that fight by 1 round. So Danny Jacobs had just pushed the issue a little bit more, a little bit earlier. He actually could have, had a draw, or he could have pulled that fight off. Obviously, we know what happened with Floyd Mayweather. He got washed. Against Lara, most people think that Lara beat him, and they think Lara got robbed in that particular fight. And then you can go into other, I guess you could say, other elite competition. Gennady Golovkin. He had a lot of issues in the Gennady Golovkin fight as well. A lot of issues with that. A lot of people think he lost that first fight against Gennady Golovkin. And even against Austin Trout, with the whole, scoring system thing they had in Texas. People felt, they did that boy dirty. But even with him being forced out of his game plan, pushing the issue, a lot of people, that fight was still a lot closer, than, you would have thought. There's never this massive separation between Canelo Alvarez and his opponents when he's facing, high level competition. It's not about being black. It's about high level competition. Right now, he's in a space where he has an entity, which is the Zone, who's willing to pay him top tier money to fight mid-level competition. That's just what it is. So the way he's saying and looking at it, hey, why am I going to fight these tough dudes to make the same amount of money as I am fighting these guys over here? These guys, morons, are going to give me $30-something million to fight super low tier competition. What I would basically be getting paid in a million pay-per-view about, I'm going to do that. Now they're willing to, they're not willing to pay me that 35 million anymore, but they're still willing to pay me $20 million a fight to fight this lower tier competition. So cool. Maybe instead of me fighting twice, I just fight 3 times a year and end up getting the same amount of money without taking the risk. And I'm going to pimp these, until it's dry. I'm going to pimp this situation until it's dry. And I believe that's what he's doing, So in order to do, while doing that, there's certain guys he's just not going to fight, whether it be Demetrius Andres, whether it be Charlo, either one of the Charlo brothers. When they went to, when he was at 175 pounds, he fought against Kovalev. But Kovalev was a guy who was coming off being knocked out back-to-back, won his belt back after that. And then he had a hard fight where he almost got stopped. And then, like, less than 2 months later, he's fighting Canelo Alvarez. The top guys in that division was Vastix, Beterbiev, and Vibo. Bivol. Beterbiev and Vastic fought each other. Beterbiev, was victorious, unified champion, the best in the division at that point. Then you have Bivol, who's also sitting at that number 2 spot. Those are the top guys. Canelo didn't fight either one of them. He's at 168 pounds right now, and look at the people that he's fighting, But the top guys in that division, is Caleb Plant and Benavidez, And the Benavidez is the reason why he says, I'm not fighting any of my Mexican fighters anymore. I'm not fighting any of my fellow Mexican fighters. He came up with that, I believe, is because of Benavidez, and he doesn't want to fight Benavidez. He's want to stay away from that. I don't believe he's going to fight Caleb Plant. Again, he's fighting guys that aren't the top guys in the division. When he was at 160 pounds, it was the same thing. He fought all these other dudes, fought the Danny Jacobs or whatever. But when it came, and he did fight Gennady Golovkin, so he did fight him. But then the other guys that he's going to have the most issues with, the most problems with, the style that he's going to have the most issue with in the southpaw in Demetrius Andrade, or Charlo, great jab, great straight right, hard hitter. It's just he's going to have problems with these, so he's staying away from those two guys. He stayed away from them at 154 pounds as well. When you have both Charlo brothers with belts, Demetrius Andrade with belts, he didn't want to fight any of them. He had a controversial one against Lara, never fought him again. But as soon as this, Demetrius Andrade gets stripped and a lower tier fighter grabs the belt, he was quick to fight him. At 168 pounds, as soon as Benavidez lost his belt and it's up for grabs, and he could fight one of the Smiths in a unification and get the belt, he grabbed it then. Then he could fight this lower tier guy in Yildirim, gonna fight him then. Now you're fighting a Billy Joe Saunders, and we've seen him have problems and issues in his last fights. Where even he himself said he looked like complete trash. And that's who he's gonna fight next. So, I understand what people are saying about Terence Crawford, like, who are you to talk? You're over here saying you're never gonna fight Earl Spence. He's over here talking about, won't even negotiate with Sean Porter, never negotiated with Ugas. So these guys talked to him, I think, one time, then they never contacted him back again. So, people looking at it and saying, you're not fighting this top tier guys either. Yes, and it's the truth. Absolutely. He's also is not fighting top tier guys. But he's also right in his assessment. He's also absolutely right in his assessment. And just with Canelo Alvarez, it's just, when it comes to the lower divisions, especially when he was like at 160 pounds or so, there were certain guys that he obviously wanted no part of. When he was at 154, there was guys that he wanted no part of. They just, they happened to be black, but it was more of just because of the level of skill and talent, and he didn't want to face. He didn't want to face that style. He didn't want to face them, but it didn't necessarily have to be them. If you had a Mexican fighter, or if you had a European fighter that, had a certain level of skills that could give him problems like that, I don't think he would have faced them. He wouldn't have faced them either. His goal is to try to maneuver himself in a way where he's just as the safest possible way can take, as long as these guys are willing to give him money. As long as they're willing to give him money, the amount that they're giving him, and he not have to face that high level competition, he's not going to do it. He's absolutely not going to do it. Once that dries up, people are like, now we're not going to do that anymore, then that will change. But right now they're still doing it, and they're not getting the viewerships. They're not getting the viewerships. They're not getting their money's worth, I guess you could say, but they're still sticking to it. And I guess they believe in the long run eventually it will work. But to each his own. Like I've said it before. Like if these dudes are gonna be moronic and they're gonna do this, then the boy's gonna go out there and he's gonna get his money. Who am I, to tell that man to not go get his money? When these morons are gonna do this. But what I did also say is you also have to acknowledge that that is what he's doing, and that he's not fighting the top guys in this division. And when it comes to that pound for pound, you can't put him there. You can't put him there. You have to acknowledge what's being done. Go get your money. Go do you. But what he does has to be acknowledged. So, Crawford, in a way, is right. you know, in a way, he's right. It just happens that a lot of the fighters that he was avoiding were black. But it's more of just because of the hard competition. That's why you're not gonna see him fight a Bevo. That's why you're not gonna see him fight a Benavidez. I guess a lot of people believe he's gonna fight Caleb Plant. I don't believe so. He's talking about being undisputed and all this other stuff, but he's talking about the same stuff at 160 pounds. And when it came down to it, and Demetrius Andrade had that last belt, he didn't do it. So I think it's just playing the fans as he always does. I believe he's going to continue to fight on DAZN. DAZN's going to keep giving him that 20+ mil. And Eddie Hearn's going to keep giving him these low-tier fighters, and he's going to keep fighting them and making that bank. And he's probably going to ride that. He might ride that for the rest of his career. You might not see that man in a 50-50 fight ever again. And I mean ever. But we'll see what happens. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.